Greetings and welcome to CityHawk PodTalk. I'm your host, Gina Melso, and today we will be exploring the new Better FAFSA form, the changes to it, and how it will affect higher education. Joining us is Catherine Russell, CCD's Community Engagement Specialist for Student Success. She's going to help us break down the form and everything that we need to know about it and the simplification process. Let's jump into it.
It is Wednesday, December 13th. It's Taylor Swift's birthday.
Oh my God.
Is it? Yes, it is.
I'm just going to have you start off with introducing yourself and what you do and all that fun stuff.
Sounds good, yeah. So I am Catherine Russell. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for TRIO EOC. We're housed here at CCD, so we help a lot of CCD students. And what was the other thing you asked? I'm so sorry. It was like introducing myself.
Just, what you do for the students.
Yeah,
here.
So we help a lot with FAFSA applications, just navigating the different systems in colleges, career exploration, and a lot of other things just to be another support service for students. And actually we can help people who aren't just CCD students who are interested in coming to the college or just learning about college in general.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of the FAFSA. So for basics, what is the FAFSA and how does it help you pay for higher education?
Yeah, of course. So the FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So it's the same application that everybody in the country fills out in order to receive federal student aid. And that looks different in terms of what they will offer. So it's the Pell Grant, which is free money the government will give you if you qualify. Work study, which is money to be able to work on campus. And then federal student loans as well, which is money you have and then you pay back once you're graduated.
Gotcha. Yeah. That was a great explanation of what FAFSA is. Yeah. I did go to a 4-year university and it was 100 questions. The FAFSA was 100 questions before. And I only did some of them before, my parents took over and kind of wanted to do it. So I didn't know certain things about, income or whether it be that or something else. So I can't imagine as a student just doing that all alone on your own.
Right.
So this is amazing, this Better FAFSA. So how does the Better FAFSA initiative aim to improve the current FAFSA other than going from 100 to, 30 questions now?
So it actually depends. So that's one of the biggest changes. Obviously, 100 questions is a lot of questions. So it really just depends on your circumstances to how many questions you'll answer. And that's actually part of the simplification of the FAFSA. So basically, if a question doesn't apply to you, you won't even have to see that question and click through it. But also, there's other ways it's going to be more simplified. So you mentioned kind of that the income and that tax information is where you typically were like, oh, that's not really dealing with me anymore. So that is really complicated. In a way, they are streamlining this process is a way to transfer tax information directly from an IRS database. So that transfer will happen pretty seamlessly and will happen for both the student and their contributors or their parents or guardians.
Wow, I didn't know that, directly connected with the IRS.
Yeah, and this is a tool they've had in the past, but it's going to be much easier and much more people will be able to transfer their federal tax information that way.
Gotcha. So what specific changes or enhancements does the Better FAFSA propose for smoother application process, if you will?
Yeah. So it's a lot of the things that I already mentioned. So reducing the questions to sometimes people may only have to answer 10 questions based on, or 18 questions taking less than 10 minutes. And that all depends on circumstance as well. But like I said, it will just help with that federal tax transfer. And instead of typically what you would get is called an EFC, or an expected family contribution, but that is going away and we're moving to a student aid index calculation, which will be simpler and allow more people to qualify for that Pell Grant, which is that free money.
So does that in turn help, let's say, adult learners that aren't, with their parents anymore?
Yeah, it should help adult learners who are no longer dependents of their parents and things like that. It goes based off of the income of someone who is an independent, and if they're married, their spouse, and other things like the amount of people in their household and things like that.
Cool. So how does the better FAFSA help the financial needs of a more diverse student population?
Yeah. So it goes more than just like making it shorter or making it easier to transfer that tax information. It removes specific barriers for a lot of certain groups too. So like youth experiencing homelessness or unaccompanied youth will have an easier time being able to verify their circumstance, which in turn allows them to be independent students who don't have to include any sort of parent or guardian information.
Can you touch a little bit more on the financial aid process for families and how that is now going to change a little bit?
Yeah, so how the process is changing a little bit is typically if you were a dependent student, only one of your parents would need to create an FSA ID account in order to go on and electronically sign. And parents or guardians, obviously, everybody's situation is different. But now one change is that anyone who contributes to the student financially will have to create an FSA ID and contribute. And basically what they're doing is they're agreeing to have their own federal tax information transferred. So that's going to help. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint, if a student is trying to tell their parents tax information or they're not quite sure, it will help that the parent can go ahead and just automatically agree to it, and then that federal tax transfer will be sooner and all sorts of things like that. So kind of ways where contributors can play more of a role in the FAFSA and make it easier on the students.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Students already have enough on their plates. So, how does the Better FAFSA address existing barriers that may hinder students from completing the FAFSA or getting the education that they desire?
Mm-hmm. So before the changes, one barrier that we would see a lot in our office too was a student who has a parent who does not have a social security number. Before, there is no way for that parent to make an FSA ID account. So no way for them to electronically sign the application. And with the new changes, they're creating a process which someone without a social security number can use other forms of identification to verify their identity. So that way, it will make almost everybody will be able to electronically sign the application, which before it included mailing in a paper signature, waiting a couple of weeks, and so on. So it should remove that barrier, as well as just that tax information. Dealing with taxes can be so stressful, and just you're worried if you're doing something wrong, am I doing something illegal? So just having that transferred will remove a lot of barriers for people where that was like maybe the main thing holding them back before.
For sure.
Yeah.
I guess my question to that is there anything that students, parents, dependents, with parents that don't have social security numbers, is there any sort of risk for them to apply for FAFSA through this?
No. As of this moment, the Department of Education does not share information with the Department of Justice or any of those other organizations, but that is speaking in this moment right now, too.
So it's ever evolving?
Yeah, it's a continuing evolving situation. And if you ever have questions about that too, or if you're concerned, our office is a safe space to come and ask questions about that and definitely get more information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah,
we love
of course.
resources.
Yes.
So I guess this kind of ties into everything that we've talked about, but how does Better FAFSA take into account changes in the economic landscape and evolving educational needs? Because we have seen that this trend of more jobs needed that don't require degrees but require certificates. So how does this all play in?
Yeah. So it does include more programs to be Pell eligible, or that grant from FAFSA eligible, so they can receive those free funds. But it also it takes into account the fact that living is a lot more expensive now, and just you talked about the economic landscape.
Yes.
So basically, it is expanding the formula that they use to determine whether you qualify for that free money is expanding. So you don't have to. You can maybe make a little bit more and still qualify, or you might maybe have some assets that you have that typically would. They would say you need to use those for college, but now they're saying you're more eligible for Pell because everything else is so expensive. So
if I'm making, I don't know, $50,000 a year bartending or something.
Okay.
Oh gosh, kind of ran off with my thought.
Okay.
And okay, so half my paycheck, my monthly paycheck goes to rent. Do they take that into account now?
So not specifically in terms of like what percentage of each thing is happening. And I should clarify that, the formulas they use are kind of top secret. They don't necessarily, tell us how they are calculating everything.
But government.
Yes, exactly. But what they will tell us is that they're looking at a smaller percentage of any assets you have. So any cash, savings, checkings, things like that, instead of looking at it and saying maybe we'll say 30% of that they could use towards their college, they might now be like 15%. And these are all just thrown out numbers. So it's not actually accurate, right? But it's basically just looking at a smaller percent of anything you have to determine whether or not you could use free money to pay for college. So that's kind of in the weeds a little bit, but basically just expanding the formula to include more people.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And since it's ever evolving, how does that affect the form opening, the FAFSA opening on December 31st?
Yeah, so that has been the reason why. So all of these changes happening have pushed the release date to December 31st because typically the FAFSA opens October 1st of every year. And hopefully we can expect that later this year, that the next year's will open in October. But since they've made these many changes, and it's, kind of like we talked about, it's a lot of different things, so that's why it's rolling out a little bit later this year.
But the deadline for getting it in has not changed, correct?
So the deadline differs from school to school. So if you ever are curious, you can call CCD's financial aid office or our office just to make sure you're still within the deadline. Typically for CCD, they will let you apply for FAFSA at any point in the semester or just, whenever. But it needs to be processed before they would need to charge you, basically. So.
Okay.
The sooner the better, just to have that out there. The sooner you file your FAFSA, the better, but there's no hard deadlines as of right now.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Last question for you. What additional resources does CCD and or the Auraria campus offer students for the FAFSA process?
Definitely. Huge shout out to financial aid. They have been our kind of guidance with all of these changes too, so you can definitely reach out to them. The Educational Opportunity Center, of course. The Denver Scholarship Foundation is also a really great resource. They train lots of volunteers to help with FAFSA and things like that. But yeah, come to our office. We have appointments virtually or in person. You can give us a call, walk in, or even just, stop in and ask a question. So
yeah, just say hey to Catherine.
Yeah, of course. We'd love that.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for kind of breaking all of this very complex topic down. So
of course.
we very much appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right.